Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to day 3 of Christian Bookmas. I'm having a lot of fun doing Bookmas. It is only day 3, but still having a lot of fun. I'm really glad that I chose to do this. So I was tagged in an original tag by Berna from Berna's Bookish Adventures, and it is called the Decades of Agatha tag. It goes along with the reading event that she is hosting this month that actually starts today, December 3rd, and goes through the 14th. And that is the Christie's Missing Readathon. And it is actually taking place over the 11 days that Agatha Christie one year went missing. She was going through, well, she wasn't yet going through a divorce, but it was coming. Her husband had made it known that he was cheating on her, and she went missing somehow. So it was a big mystery that nobody knew really what happened, right? And where she was. And then they found her, and she never talked about it. She didn't write about it in her biography, from what I understand. There was just nothing. She never mentioned it. So the big mystery is what happened to Agatha. Well, if you are a female over like maybe 19 or 20 years old, you know exactly what Agatha was doing after finding out that her husband was getting ready to leave her, right? Desperate times call for desperate measures, but it is a mystery and it's never actually been documented what happened. If you were interested in that story and just kind of like some maybes, I would recommend that you check out this book. It's called The Mystery of Mrs. Christie by Marie Benedict. I've talked about it, quite a few times in the last few months because I just read it a couple of months ago. It's so good. I'm getting ready to put it in my mom's Christmas box. I'm just waiting for a couple more things to come. But Mom, you have to send it back. I'm not giving this to you. You can keep it as long as you want, but I eventually want it back so I can read it again here in a couple of years. Anyway, so if you guys haven't read that yet and you are interested in the mystery of Agatha Christie and her real life mystery, her real life disappearance, check that out. But anyway, back to the readathon and the tag. Berna is hosting that. It starts today, December 3rd, and I'm super excited because I love Agatha Christie and I have some more stuff I want to read, and I'm just like, perfect time in December just to kick back in this cozy time and read some Agatha Christie. But tonight I'm going to do this tag. So the way she did this was you are picking your favorite Agatha Christie novel from each decade that she published, starting in the 1920s and going into the 1970s. What a fantastic life, right? Just to like hang out with the person you love, write books, travel the world. Like, Agatha Christie's story is so cool, partly because it's like so doable for the average person. I mean, really, it probably could be if you really wanted to. Like, if you really married an archaeologist who really did travel around doing digs, and you really did have a disposable income, and you really did have writing ability, and you really didn't have a whole lot of like household ties, it's totally doable. All right, so you pick your favorite Agatha Christie from each decade, and then you answer a prompt to go with that decade, okay? So I have just started actually reading through Agatha Christie's books. I have watched the TV versions of Poirot and the Joan Hickson Miss Marples from the 80s and early 90s so many times, like so many times. I thought I knew the stories frontwards and backwards, but then I started actually reading Agatha Christie's books that were, that these shows were based on, and I realized, oh, the ones who, put those TV shows together, they take some artistic license. So the stories in some cases are different from the shows, and that's super cool, right? So it's almost like I'm discovering a whole bunch of new Agatha Christie stories just because they take a little bit of a tweak from what I've seen on TV, but I don't know what the tweak is until I get there. That's cool. Okay, let's start on the tag. The first one is the 1920s. I have yet to read any of the super early Agatha Christie's, but my favorite TV show is The Mysterious Affair at Styles, and that is actually the first book that she published. It was a Poirot mystery. She published it in 1920, but wrote it in like 1916 during World War I. She was still married to her first husband at that point. I don't even think he had had his affair yet. At least he hadn't made it known. And they ended up naming their home after the book and called it Styles as well. So the story does center around the war, and we meet Poirot as a refugee. It's a really fantastic story. It takes place at a manor. There's quite a diversity of character types in that one. And so it does definitely keep you guessing. And you are kind of hopping between options, right? Of, who could have done it? And just the different fun characters that she added to the story. I really liked it. So then the prompt to go with that one is a book with an unexpected plot twist. For me, that was, I've talked about this before, but it's called A Spinner in the Sun by Myrtle Reed. This one is from 1906, and it's a simple story. Like, there's not a ton going on in it, but the female main character here has a specific issue, a specific ailment. And what happens in this book to bring on the plot twist, like, my jaw dropped. I was just not expecting it to happen. And it's so hard to talk about a book when you can't give any spoilers. But anyway, check that one out if you're interested in, some really old, kind of post-Victorian reading, but very much still in that Victorian romantic sort of, feel. All right, and then for the 1930s, I picked The Murder at the Vicarage. That one was published in 1930. And I adore this story. My favorite character in this story is the vicar's wife, Griselda. She is quite a bit younger than him, and she's very spunky. She's super funny, and she keeps him young. And that has really very little to do with the actual plot of the story, but I just I really do like her. It's a murder that takes place in town, I guess, at the vicarage. There's a lot involving, like, the church and church goers in this one. Agatha Christie later said that she did not, she was dissatisfied with it because she said there was too many characters and too many subplots. I've never really thought that, and even thinking back on it, I really don't think that there was that many more characters and subplots than any of her other novels. Doesn't particularly stick out to me, but she wasn't satisfied with it, so I'm glad she didn't rewrite it though, because I like it the way it is. The prompt for that one is to pick a book that you think deserves its hype. This is probably going to end up being my favorite nonfiction read for this year, Jane Austen's Bookshelf by Rebecca Romney. This book was really hyped up in June and July. It came out a little bit earlier in the late winter, early spring. Lots of people were putting it on their list for Jane Austen July. Lots of people did read it. I did a whole video on this book. I thought it was so fantastic. It's basically this author does she introduces us to some of the people that Jane Austen would have been reading, some of the other women authors that came before her, and shows how these authors laid the groundwork for Jane Austen. And while, we see her as the greatest female writer or one of the greats, in her day, these other women were seen as the greats. And both men and women writers were taking inspiration from these other women. And so the book, I think, explores 8 other women writers from Jane Austen's time or, before. And it's really just a springboard for your own reading and research. This is like a doorway book. Reading this just opened up the door for me to so many other writers that I just wasn't aware of. I had read somewhere years ago that Jane Austen wrote the first modern novel. That is so not true. That is so not true. And I think she would be horrified to even, have someone say that, because she really, you can tell how much she admired and just was inspired by these women. So this book was just so well done. It was very engaging. The author, put in some of her, the author added some of her own just life experience and just life things, to sort of make it relatable. And just everything about this book, absolutely fantastic. If you haven't read that yet, grab a copy sometime between now and July. Read it during Jane Austen July. You will love it and you'll be so inspired. All right, next up is the 1940s, and for that one I chose The Body in the Library this is my copy of that. I have been trying to collect copies of her books that are not like super new, right? Like maybe they're 15, 20 years old or older, just because I had heard that they were rewriting her stories for, like, they have like sensitivity writers, like rewriting her stories and cutting out things that, you know, aren't appropriate for modern, you know, times and our ways of thinking and those sorts of things. And while I really do think that, you know, we need to be careful and gentle and kind and right, and be careful about the way we speak about people and just the things that we find to be appropriate and not appropriate, I don't like the idea of changing up an artist's work. I think that if you don't like the artist's work, you just avoid it. You don't change it, right? So that really bothers me. Anyway, I've been collecting a lot of these older ones. So that's my version of Body in the Library. And this is one of my very favorites. And it's funny because I don't really like any of the characters, except for Miss Marple and her bestie, Mrs. Bantry. I adore them. And Mrs. Bantry's husband, the Colonel, I really like him. But for the most part, I really don't like any other characters in that story, but I do like the story. So the Bantrys wake up one morning to be told by their staff that there is a dead body in their library. There's, of course, an investigation. They connect this body to a missing dancer who worked at a hotel nearby, and the Colonel is kind of suspected because, you know, he's a man and she's a young girl, and he went to that hotel sometimes to watch entertainment, and it is in his library after all, but I don't think anybody really takes that seriously. And then there's just, you know, it turns into just this whole complicated story, really. But really great story, ends really well. And for me, the one who turned out to be like the murderer is the one that I wanted it to be anyway. So it was a person that I really didn't care for. And so, I was like, all right, good. That's justice right there. The prompt for that one is a book that deserves more hype. All right, so I'm actually going to talk about an author instead of a book, and that is Nathaniel Hawthorne. So Nathaniel Hawthorne is fantastic, you guys, and I never hear anybody talk about him. When I do, on the rare chance, so many people don't like him. Like, what is the deal with you people? Because he is fantastic. So I really appreciate Nathaniel Hawthorne's social commentary, his religious commentary, his sense of humor, his talk about irony. He is the author of books like The Scarlet Letter or The House of Seven Gables. And I do love The Scarlet Letter. I don't know, I kind of liked the other one, but what I really enjoy are his short stories. And so every January I host a event called Nathanuary, rhymes with January, super clever, I know, and we talk about the works of Nathaniel Hawthorne, and there's a group read and whatever. So I am doing that again. So tonight's Bookmas was actually going to be my Nathanuary announcement, but then I was like, this is the eve of the great Christie mystery disappearance readathon. So I gotta do this tag instead. But I am gonna be hosting that again for like the two of you that participated last year. I would really encourage you guys, grab a copy of Nathaniel Hawthorne's Tales, and we are gonna be doing a couple of short stories this year. The cool thing about Nathaniel Hawthorne is, this is not cool, but it turns out well. So his like third great grandpa or something was one of the judges during the Salem witch trials. And Nathaniel Hawthorne was so disgusted with him that he even like changed the spelling of his last name and added an E so he didn't have to be associated. But a lot of his works sort of, I think are put there to sort of combat or like save the family name, right? Like he doesn't want to go along with, you know, he of course abhors the disgusting treatment of these people during the Salem witch trials. And so it's almost like it was kind of his literary mission to write against that religious hypocrisy and be just like a, you know, an advocate almost for those who are experiencing religious hypocrisy and social hypocrisy, but mostly things within the church at the hand of those who, I mean, I wouldn't say authority. We choose our authorities, right? But just the ones who have a mission, who say they have a mission from God to protect. There's just so much to think about in his writings, and they are super applicable for today. So, fantastic writer, and I don't think he gets enough hype. So I've dedicated an entire month to reading things by Nathaniel Hawthorne. All right, next one, 1950s. I chose, let me get my little stack of Christies here. Where is it? Oh, it's right here on top. A Murder is Announced. All right, this is my very favorite Agatha Christie story ever. This one was published in 1950. I love all the characters. I love the humor. I love the snarkiness of some of the characters. This is just such a great story. So this one, basically there is a murder announced in the newspaper one night. It's going to take place at 7 o'clock at one of the homes in town. So it gives the address and everything. And so people just start showing up, right? And so luckily, thankfully, the house in town also has read that ad because they did not place it. And so, you know, everybody's surprised, like, what is going on here? So the people who own the house are like, okay, you know, what is this? It must just be some kind of a joke. And then people start showing up and everybody's just like, this is so weird. And the vicar's wife is like, when's the murder? Am I too late for it? Like, they just all kind of think it's like a party, right? Just something funny, like a gag. And then sure enough, at 7 o'clock, the lights go out and someone shows up and starts shooting. No one is actually killed at that point, but that starts the mystery of, you know, who was it and why, and then it goes from there, and people do start dying because they know stuff, and the murderer does not want things revealed. So it is just a really fantastic story, but it's the characters that make it really great. Like Patrick and Julia, fantastic. Love Patrick and Julia. The people who play Patrick and Julia are still like a famous actor and actress, so it's so fun to see them, you know, in their 70s, I guess, playing characters even now. Like, yeah, great story. Okay, so the prompt for that one is a book with a great sidekick. And that is actually, the one I picked for that is actually a whole series. This is the Mr. Darcy and Miss Tilney mystery series by Claudia Gray. There's actually a 5th one coming out this summer. I just learned a couple weeks ago. And basically this author has taken the characters of Jane Austen novels. They're all kind of living in the same, I don't know, time, and they're all sort of intertwined a little, but it is like 20 years after, at least after Pride and Prejudice, because Lizzie and Darcy have a son named Jonathan, and then Mr. Tilney and Catherine Morland have a daughter named Juliet. They end up meeting each other at an event where, like, all of Jane Austen's main character couples are at, and they solve a murder at that event, the murder of Mr. Wickham. And then in subsequent books, they end up coming together to solve other mysteries. They are starting to get a reputation as great mystery solvers, and so like they're getting invited to come and, you know, help solve a mystery or whatever. And so looking forward to that 5th book. And so as far as a sidekick goes, like, they're each other's sidekicks, right? And they work really great together. They are a super great team. So I'm loving that. All right, 1960s. That would be At Bertram's Hotel. I have this really cool, like, version of this. This is first published in 1965. And this version was published in August of 1968. So I love these vintage covers. I think they are so neat. I'm trying to find all of her works in like these really cool vintage covers. So this is kind of a little treasure in my library. At Bertram's Hotel, This story actually received criticism for being too far-fetched, like coincidental and not believable, but I've never really felt that way about the story. I've never really thought that. The hotel in the story is like a neat, maybe like Edwardian era, maybe a little earlier hotel, and it's just well known, and it is like has its classy atmosphere that it just has a really great reputation, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so, but it's kind of mysterious. Like things go on at this hotel and nobody really talks about it, right? Because we don't want to ruin the classy reputation of this hotel. And there's a young girl, there is a famous actress, and there's a murder, and there's a sports car driver, and there's just like all these different sorts of characters that all sort of come together to make this really great story. So yeah, I don't think it's coincidental, really. I think it's much more believable than the next one I'm going to talk about in a minute. So the prompt for this one is a book with supernatural elements. Now, I don't read a lot of books that have supernatural elements unless you're talking about like biblical, supernatural things. But this book called The Winter Ghosts by Kate Moss, I know I just talked about it. It's okay. It's really good. You need to read it if you haven't. This book was just so atmospheric for me. Like I really want to read this again this winter because I read it last winter and it just was just the right thing for that just cold, kind of just, it's not creepy. It's like a gentle ghosty, but it doesn't even have to be a ghost story. Like it's one of those where it's like, was it a dream or was it really ghosts, right? And so it totally could have been a dream. Like it doesn't have to be ghosty. It has historical elements in it. It's set in like a little French village up in the mountains, and I just love it. It has like a historical mystery. It was one of my very top favorite books last year. So yeah, Winter Ghosts. You gotta check that one out. So lastly, we have the 1970s. My favorite for that one is Sleeping Murder, which was published in 1976, just a few months after her death, actually. She had sort of like approved it for publication, and then she died before it could be published. But isn't this cover really kind of super creepy? Yeah. So the idea is let sleeping murder lie. And they didn't want to let sleeping murder lie. And so they are investigating a very old murder in this one. It's Miss Marple. And this cover came from 1981. So still doing the neat vintage looking covers. That's so creepy. In fact, when I was reading this, I would always just keep it upside down because I didn't want my kids to see that and like have nightmares. So yeah, the story is actually set in 1944, but the first draft is believed to have been written in like 1940 during the Blitz. I've kind of forgotten all the details on this, but she put away a Poirot and a Miss Marple story, and she put them like in a bank vault in the 1940s. I guess she thought, from what I understand, she was afraid that she would like die in the war because she was in London at the time, and she was really, concerned. And so she put these books away to be preserved and to be handed down to her daughter and her husband if, something happened to her. And so they just stayed there, I guess. I'm not exactly sure what happened with the Poirot one, but this one, she pulled out towards the end of her life, and I think had plans on doing a bunch of revisions. She did some revisions from what I understand, but I don't know if it was like, if she was fully happy with it, but she did end up releasing it for publication. I don't know. I'm sort of just piecing this together from things that I've read in the past and trying to remember, but the thing about this story is, of all of the stories of hers that I've either read or watched, this one is the one that seems to be, to me, very coincidental and hard to believe. This one seems to have a lot of far-fetched coincidences in it. And so, rather than being the one that the critics thought, I really think it's this one. So I don't know if people thought that as well, and they just don't want to comment on it because it's like her last one and she's already passed away or what. But I didn't really read a lot of criticism in that way on this story as much as I did on the Bertram's Hotel one. But this one, Yeah, there's just no way. Like, it's a stretch. But basically, Gwenda, who is a New Zealander, I believe, and she and her new husband are looking for a home in England. Devon? Danemouth? Is Danemouth real? Devon? I can't remember. Anyway, somewhere with a D. And they come across this house for sale, and Gwenda's like, that's the one. And so they go up and they look around, and she just like knows things about this house. Things seem very familiar, but she knows that she's never lived in England before, and let alone have ever been in that house before. She had always lived in New Zealand with her aunt, I think. She feels like someone had died in the home. She starts to have kind of like visions of a murder, and then it goes from there. And it's a great story. It's has kind of some callbacks to a lot of Miss Marple novels, as well as just some writings from other people in the past, just because, things that Agatha Christie had read. It harkens back to a specific play that's like a real play. So lots of great elements, but lots of coincidental elements, in my opinion anyway. And then finally, the prompt that goes with that one is a great finale of a series. For me, that would be Wings of the Wind by Connie Lynn Cossette. It is the third book in my favorite of her series, which is the Out of Egypt series. So she has written several biblical fiction series, usually trilogies, but that one is my favorite. It may have been her first series, I can't remember, but it was the first one that I had read by her, and I loved them so much. So the stories talk about the time when the Israelites left Egypt, and then the other, people that went with them. Anyone who wanted to be grafted into the family of Yahweh got to leave along with the Israelites in safety. And so it centers around a girl that was an Egyptian, and just her story of how she did put her faith in Yahweh and became grafted into the family of Israel, and just the things that she encounters on the way. And that's the first book. And then the second and the third are just further chronicles, right, of the people who had left. And but that third book is just so fantastic. It's a really great, like, gentle romance. And I'm not even a romance reader, but there's so much more to it. Like, the romantic element in most of her stories is pretty gentle, and but not like a major in your face sort of point. But in this one, I think there was a little bit more of a romance line, but it was so good. It was done so well. So anyway, you guys can check that out. I'm gonna go ahead and end this here because I have babbled so long, probably because I am so sleepy. Hope everybody's having a good day. Happy Bookmas Day 3. I'll be back tomorrow with something fantastic as usual. Have a great day, guys. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.